So today we are very, very, very blessed, lucky to have these two individuals. World champion in rowing 4 times over.
Yeah.
And we have Olympic medalist as well. And more importantly, now what they're doing, arguably more importantly, they are coaching the rowing Olympic team here in Saudi. So we're going to understand everything there is to know about their life here, what is happening, and what the future holds for you. Are you excited? Nervous?
Excited.
Good.
Why
Cold.
not?
Cold and excited.
Well, the tea's warming us up.
Good. We'll have to get another one every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Didn't know we were coming to a cryo lab to actually talk for 2 hours.
Yeah, radio slash crowd.
Yeah.
Right. Ready?
Ready?
We have 2 guests here with us today, and one is called Bill, one is called Matthew. So who is going to go first? Who are you? Age before wisdom, age before beauty, is that the same?
Definitely age before beauty.
We'll go with that.
Bill can start.
So Bill, who are you, and give us a bit of your story, because
Right back.
right, but as in your the highlights.
Okay, I went to a school and played rugby, and then I played cricket, and unfortunately I didn't bat the ball with the bat, I batted it with my nose. So I gave up cricket quickly and followed the family tradition of rowing and sculling, because my uncle, my great uncle, my father were all world professional champions at one time, and I saw this sport at Henley and I said I'll give it a go.
Okay.
And I did. But I had to train for 3,000 miles before my dad would actually let me scull in a novice race, because I was carrying a family name.
Okay.
Anyway, I did all that, and eventually went to Commonwealth, Empire Games, World Championships, and got a silver medal in the Tokyo Olympics in rowing.
In what year?
In 1964.
1964. So before both of us were born.
Yeah.
Just about.
Just a little while.
I knew you wanted to make that point.
Okay, that's amazing. And then?
Well, and then I went to work and did all right there, and eventually thought, I'd like to give something back into rowing, and started coaching.
Okay.
Got 1 or 2 people into the international team, and probably my best success was with a guy called Alan Campbell, who got a bronze medal in the Olympics in 212 in London. He got a silver and 2 bronze in the World Championships as well. And after that, I was sort of hanging around the club, and this guy came up to me and said, "My name's Hussein Alireza. Do you think I could get into the Olympics?" I thought, that's a bit of a challenge. I mean, after all, he wasn't athletic, hadn't done anything special, but there was something in his eye, something in his way, in his manner, that said this guy is determined, and he'd be committed. Because I explained to him the program. You know, rowing is not an easy sport. It's one of the toughest sports of all. You train 11 months of a year, 2 and 3 times a day, get an occasional day off, and that's pretty tough for a guy who's not really done very much, other than a few tennis balls and a bit of this and that, probably snooker and other indoor games. But he was really, really determined and said he would do everything that I asked. And I said, the program's tough, you do everything I ask, and maybe through the Asian regional qualification regatta, you might get through. They were offering 7 places at that time, which closed down to 5, so things got tougher.
Yeah.
Things got in the way, like COVID, so we couldn't go anywhere for a couple of years. Travel was banned, in addition to the fact there's not very much water in Saudi that you can row on. So things were quite tough, but nevertheless he got there, and we became the first Saudi ever to row in the Olympics.
Amazing.
Or indeed in any World Championships.
And what year was that in? What year did he compete in?
In 2021.
Amazing.
Because the Olympics, as you might remember, were postponed a year because of COVID.
Yes.
And Japan, having very strict government rules about people entering, decided to postpone the games for 1 year. So although it's called 2020, it actually happened in 2021.
That's very true, yes.
So that's how it all started. It is ongoing. If I may, I'll just say what happened then. We went also to the Asian Games in 2018 after about 8 months of training. Finished in a reasonable place, then met up with Prince Abdul Aziz, who's the boss of pretty well everything in sport. And,
the minister, yeah.
The minister. which has had many names recently, but is currently the Ministry of Sport. He said he wanted to create a team of men and women to row in the Paris Olympics or the Los Angeles Olympics whenever we could do. So we met again in London and said we need to have a federation so we could actually tap into the organisation, especially some finance and things like that.
Doesn't come cheap, yeah.
We were privately run at that time. He agreed to that, formed a federation for us, and got things going. And currently, we have a president and a CEO who are really keen on rowing, and doing a great job, despite the fact that rowing is an unknown sport in Saudi, which makes it difficult for us to explain why we need some boats, why we need some athletes, and why we need some money to go to training camps to try and catch up the rest of the world.
Yes.
Because Matt, who will be allowed to speak in a moment, has actually the real pathway to developing a sport in a country like Saudi.
Yes.
But in most countries around the world, England, Europe, America, Australia, sport for rowing starts in schools. So from the age of 14, guys are training for the sport.
Yes.
They then go on to university, where universities around the world are very keen on rowing. And it's common to have junior world championships, under 18s, under 23 world championships, and these people have been training for that 14 years, like Matt here. And we're up against it with athletes who've done some CrossFit running and stuff like that.
Yes.
But there's no real sport in schools, there's no rowing in schools, and we have to start on that pathway to really develop the sport in this country, which we want to do, and which has started this year, based on some of the successes that we've had in Asian championships and indoor rowing.
Yes. Well,
so that's where we're up to, and Matt will tell you more about that.
Sounds like you've got your work cut out for you, but I'm sure
We do 7 days a week, despite the strange weekend here in Saudi, which differs from our European experience.
The Friday, Saturday.
We thought for one moment we had 3 days off, but actually we have 7 days a week, more or less, not quite 24/7, but certainly with rowing starting in the early morning because of heat, because of wind. At 6 o'clock, we're out there on the water. And again, especially during the summer, we can get out again in the evening after the heat's died down and maybe the wind's died down and things like that.
So yeah, you've got more time to catch up. kind of.
Well, in between, we deal with boats, repair them, repair athletes, give them programs, deal with their everyday problems. So I've got a bad back today. Have you? Get back to training. We've got to be tough on what is quite a gentle culture. Let me put it that way.
I love that.
Okay. Hey, let Matt have a go. He's got lots to say. I can drink this tea you promised.
Yeah, it's probably cold now. But
what, like me?
Yes. But anyway, Matt, over to you.
So a brief introduction of myself.
Yes.
So I think similar to Bill, I tried multiple sports before I found rowing. Did a lot of rugby, did a lot of swimming, did a lot of tennis, bit of football. But naturally fell into the sport of rowing due to my size, my genetics, I guess. I was bigger and stronger than most kids at that time.
Yeah.
And I naturally found my groove. And that was when I was about 14 years old. I got into rowing. And then by the age of 15, I went to my first Junior World Championships, which in 2007 was in Beijing. So the juniors get the privilege of trying out the Olympic courses the year before the Olympic Games. So 2007 for us was Beijing, ahead of the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing. And then from that point onwards, I just got obsessed with it. And rowing has basically steered my life from the age of 15 to now being 32. I represented every year between 2007 and 2021 the British rowing team, right from juniors through universities into the senior teams. And then I guess how I somehow fell into the Saudi scene was at a British indoor event. I had a bad leg at the time. I think I had a tendon issue. So I just had a stand for a coaching business trying to get up some more clients. And I bumped into a guy, Mo, who, when Bill helped set up the federation, Mo was the one put in charge and the first president. So I was doing his training program, so him on the rowing machine. He liked my program, so asked if I can come on board and help write some programs. And then from that point onwards, sort of Bill's been leading the show. I've been in the background trying to help out where I can. And about a year and a half ago, I retired from the British rowing team and naturally moved into a more full-term position within the Saudi Rowing Federation.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I love how you both have like just glossed over your successes in a way, like the kind of the medals, the sort of the titles.
So you want us to drop the humility,
I feel,
do you?
yeah, I feel like
Okay,
name
well,
drop it.
Well, we had a gathering. Prince MBS had a gathering prior to the Olympics, and the guys were standing around there counting, how many games they'd been to and whatever.
Really?
And someone asked me the question, and I'm now number one.
Who are you?
Number one in the whole of Saudi in terms of being in Olympics and World Championships. I've been quite successful on the coaching side. I've brought people basically from zero to somewhere. I like that idea of taking on someone from the very start, seeing if they've got the mental ability as well as the physical ability, and that sheer determination to do the programs and get somewhere, rather than take on someone who's got a funny arm or a funny leg or soft in the head, and I've got to do something about it. Although I like to have fun, I think we should try to make this very hard sport as much fun as we can. So I think I've maintained a sense of humour, and yet there's a sort of hard-nosed approach underneath it all, because you've got to be pretty hard as a coach to make people do this amount of training. Then the joy of it, because there are many other values in this sport other than just winning, other than just bashing an ergo, racing a boat. It brings a great sort of team spirit. It's all about teamwork in the crew boats. And that's something that doesn't happen perhaps in other sports.
Yes.
It brings a discipline to people that they perhaps don't get in early life because they have to train. And in particular, I mean, some mums and dads worry about their boys and girls doing this sport at school because it takes up time. But what we did was we did some research, and we found that those who rowed achieved better academic results than those who didn't row, partly because of time management. They have to learn to train, eat, sleep, do the homework, and go to classes in the 36 hours that we give them per day.
So parents out there, if you get your kids down to rowing, because their grades will improve. But no, I can totally see how that's a thing, how that happens.
They do improve simply because they have to, and parents are usually checking how are your grades going. And so far, we've had a pretty good result from that, because people in the sport tend to get top grades. People in business, because people in rowing are achievers, they achieve something. Yeah. They've got disciplines, they've got goals, objectives to achieve. They do well in business as well. Okay. And you'll find around the world a lot of people in top positions who are ex-rowers from various universities from around the world, etc., etc. Sounds very elite, but these days it isn't, because we are right down in most of the countries to the grassroots of secondary schools, comprehensive schools, government-run schools, quite apart from the traditional private schools that always have done rowing.
No, I get that.
So, and I just would like to mention how popular rowing has become with ladies.
It has.
In my day...
Globally or here specifically?
Globally. Because in my day, which, as you cared to mention, was some time ago, just trying to make a point about my age.
No.
There used to be very few ladies that rowed. They usually were ladies who weren't any good at any other sport.
Okay.
Now we've got these 6 foot tall ladies who understand and want to understand the training. They like that. They love the technique part of the training, and they work very well together. And all the schools are now running big girls' sport for rowing. And it's highly competitive with junior girls and junior men.
Awesome. And
under 23 women and under 23 men, etc. So the challenge in Saudi is perhaps a little harder, but Prince Abdulaziz said we've got to have a women's team, and by Jove, we're getting one.
Well, and there's going to be lots of uptake. Well, I've seen lots of uptake already, which obviously we'll get onto later. Yeah. But
Matt, how do you agree with that?
How are your grades?
His grades are okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, my grades were never that great at school, but I'm dyslexic, so I always really struggled with the reading, the writing, and mathematics was always my strong point. But very similar to what Bill picked up on, when I left school and went in through the college, system, the structure and the dedication and, you know, understanding, you know, how to get the most out of myself. I was very good at that point of creating my self sort of development aspects and points and my own coping mechanisms. And it's very similar to in rowing. Quite a lot of the workouts we do, people are like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to get through that. But the more you subject yourself to that, the more you understand how to cope with it. You create these little mental mind games.
I see.
And I learned a lot of that in rowing and took that into my later education, and actually came through out of college with 2 A's and a B, and then a C in further maths coming out of school. At the time I had 1B and a couple of D's. So just that little switch, like Bill was talking about, being exposed to rowing helped me be more resilient, a bit more structured, a bit more disciplined with my time and my education. And that went straight through to university, and it ultimately moved me into the person I am today.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that coping mechanisms, this could be a nice little segue into, how did you find moving to Saudi? How was the shift? Because you were based in sort of in the London area?
Yeah, both London-ish.
Yeah.
So how was the move for you guys?
Perhaps it was easier for me because I've been internationally organised for all my life, both in sport and work. Was running around the world doing things. I like visiting other countries. I like finding out about their culture. And Saudi was a place that I didn't know a thing about other than what I read in the papers.
Okay.
And what you read in the papers is some young kid trying to get a headline, and they always look for the bad stories.
For sure.
And, you know, when you arrive in Saudi, it's different. It's not like that at all. I mean, there's still some bad things that go on, but they're gradually being cleared up. And the country has a vision of where it's going in the future, which I think is very exciting. When you look around, at least half the people are Western dressed these days. Ladies are driving cars and acting quite normally. It's really very different. And above all, I found the people extremely friendly, very helpful, very hospitable, and we're worried about what do we think of Saudi? That was a question we got asked all the time. At the risk of being repetitive, I tell them, look, you know, we only read what we hear, what we see in the newspapers and on TV. And please encourage more tourism like crazy. Get people to visit here because it is different. And people will go away with a very different view, which is very important, I think, to the future of Saudi, because it needs to become more global in an economic sense and relationship sense. You know, oil perhaps is not forever, and those things are happening.
And you've sort of had a good stint here, 3 or 4 years, is it?
Yeah, I've been here up and down, in and out, over 4 years.
You've seen a sort of shift in that time as well?
Even in that time, you know, just more of what I've been saying, more Western things, which I think are good to people to feel, be sensitive to, understand. I mean, okay, there's a big culture here which we have to observe very carefully. And I have run foul of that once or twice without thinking, but I've learnt my lessons and now obey most of the Saudi rules.
I'd love to know what these are. I'll make a mental note to.
It's nothing too serious. It's just understanding relationships with people. With some people, it's extremely serious, and you stand apart. For example, other people you can shake their hand. Other people you can give a hug to if they've done something great. And others you can't. So, you know, there's a strong family tradition, strong religious condition, which I think is great. You know, there are many things that I've discovered, or at least a few things I've discovered in the Islamic faith and Muslim faith that I find very attractive. Okay, I'm not changing today, just in case you were thinking of converting me. But I'm interested in those values, and I hope I can carry some of them with me.
Yes.
Because, you know, being an Olympian, and Matt's the same, you get more than just the sport and attending a place and being in the Olympics. I mean, it is the very top of the world in terms of sport, a real pinnacle of achievement, and it carries with it certain values of fairness, open-mindedness, and the biggest claim that I've been bashing for years is sport has no borders, and sport is a way of people talking together, whereas some of the politicians find it very difficult to talk together. Maybe they should take up rowing, and they'll soon find a way if they're not too tired from our training program. But sport has no borders.
Yes.
That's something that's important and just gradually crept into the Olympic movement, I'm very pleased to say, because from the boss downwards, the president of the IOC, they're talking about this a lot more.
Okay.
And I like to feel I might have had a small contribution towards that.
That's awesome.
And I do encourage it. And there are some countries that don't talk to each other, but if I know both sides, I'll introduce them and they'll chat away. And I think that's a very small start for it to be a better world.
Yes. And equally, like the sort of nationality or border side of things, but also you can't cheat fitness, no matter how much money you have, no matter what family you're from, you can't sort of cheat fitness. You that's something you need to put time, effort, dedication into in order to achieve, which obviously, you guys have done tenfold, hundredfold maybe.
And Matt still does, by the way. He takes on all the boys and girls, all the girls and boys today, both on the ergo and in the boat, and shows them the way home.
Okay.
I admire him for that because, I've done a bit of it, but I'm more about coaching and talking than actually showing them the way.
Well, you've done it before.
Yeah.
Maybe there's still a bit of ego here still.
There's plenty of ego.
And you never quite lose the competitive streak.
I'm
maybe
sure.
the idea of me rowing is better than actually doing it, whereas with Matt, he does it as well. And,
maybe you're just
admire
there like living vicariously through Matt as he wipes the floor with everyone. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a bit jealous, actually.
But Matt, how about you? How was your move?
Yes, I mean, I've only been here about, 4 months in total, coming and going a few times. But, one of the best things about rowing and representing your country is that you can travel the world doing the sport. You have regattas all over Europe, all over Asia. And now being on the Saudi side, I'm starting to see more of Asia from, visited Thailand for the first time in December. We were there for the Asian Championships. That's the first time I've been to Thailand. Normally I just stop there on the way to Australia or somewhere. But you see a lot of the world through the sport. And I think that's a great opportunity for a lot of young athletes that, maybe want to see a bit more of the world as well as try something new. But, coming here, I'd like to say I've seen a lot of it. I think I felt a lot of the same things that Bill is talking about. The people have been very friendly, very, very helpful. Both of us are always pulling on our athletes for some help, different bits and pieces. And they're always more than happy to go above and beyond to make sure that we're looked after. But as of yet, I haven't really left the villa. We live at the high performance centre, so we eat, sleep, rowing at the moment. We're there from dusk till dawn, coaching anyone and everyone. But outside of that, I've been into Yongba, I've been to Huba, I don't want to kill these names, Daman, Jebel. So I've seen little pockets of the country, and it's been the same everywhere. Everyone's very welcoming. Everyone's always smiling, happy. Yeah. As a foreigner, that's what you want. You want to be made to feel welcome, and there hasn't been a place I've visited yet where I haven't been made to feel welcome.
And are you very much here, like, we talk about sometimes expats coming in, it's work home, and sort of see very little outside of the compound or, the villa or whatever it might be. Are you sort of, everything is work related?
There's no set 9 to 5 with rowing and sport in general. They can put in your contract, you're going to work a 40-hour week, but actually you work as many hours as you need to get the results. And, because rowing is such a small sport, there's not a lot of support within it. Yeah. So my official title is Performance Director for the Saudi Olympic Training Centre, but within that I'm the head coach for the Rowing Federation. And on the coaching side, it's basically myself and Bill. We've got Kamal based in Jebel, and we've got Mo, his brother, with us in Jeddah. Outside of that, we're a bit thin on the ground with coaching staff, support staff, S&C people, physiotherapy. Okay. It's slowly starting to open up with the support of the SOTC. But until you start getting that support, you've got to be willing to put in the hours. So, every morning at 6 o'clock, we're downstairs welcoming the athletes. We're on the water, coaching them for a couple of hours. The other day, Bill did 2 back-to-back water sessions. By the time he came in, he was bright red from the sunshine. He'd been out in there for 5 hours on a tiny little rubber dinghy going round and round and round on the lake.
Or with a sort of a loudspeaker?
No, we don't even have one of those. We have such little equipment and boats and
I don't need one.
He just shouts at them.
If anyone's got a loudspeaker that these guys can use, please.
Any megaphones, coaching launches, anything. We'll take what we can get.
Okay, awesome. So let's we'll cut to a music break. we'll get you a chance to do some star jumps, burpees, warm up a little bit, and well, we'll be back after a couple of songs. So stay tuned. How was that?
Not
Good.
bad. We're only just warming up, by the way.
Yeah.
It is a nice
So-
one now.
No, I didn't mean like that. I meant like you want to
Talk. Okay.
give it some space to talk. We'll talk.
No, it's good.
We're coaches after all. We think you could do better.
Welcome back to the drive home. It is Coach Pete here. I feel bad calling myself Coach Pete around you two. it is Peter here, along with.
That's much better.
Yes. God, I feel inferior now. I am. But no, we are here with Bill and Matt, and we are talking all things Saudi rowing, and particularly Olympic Saudi rowing, which is all very exciting. And before we get deeper into that, a lot of expats are going to be hearing this out there through the video when the time comes, and a lot of the time I find it's easy to sort of say it's all sunshine and rainbows here and life is great and you know the transition over was fine and this and that, but daily life sometimes throws some hurdles your way. And so I would love to know what are like the biggest struggles or pain points that you have had here during your time. I know we talked about some off air, but what for you is sort of makes life a bit trickier here for you, other than right now in the show.
No, it's great when I was drinking tea. But I mean, I've heard a bit from Matt actually, because he's going to live here, as it were, much more permanently than I have or will do. And there's quite a lot of administration that you have to go through to be able to get a car, get a driving license, get the ability to stay here, buy a house, rent a house. There's a lot attached to that, which might seem easier in other parts of the world. On the other hand, maybe not. But Matt, you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the only thing I've been dealing with since I've been out here. You know, outside of that, I have had no real bad scenarios or any bad taste left in my mouth. You know, some of the driving's a bit suspect, so
Some.
I like to speak my mind when someone cuts me out driving down a nice pleasant road.
Interrupting Matt, as I will often do, I stood on a corner once and counted the cars. I was there about half an hour, and I was counting the cars that came out with scratches or dents or whatever, and 75% of the 200 or so cars that passed me had dents, scratches, bumps, and didn't seem to care about it. Nobody repairs them.
So, but you're right. It's like even nice cars, like have chips, dents, been driven into. But anyway, how's your car?
We still have a rental at the moment, and even that was challenging.
Practice.
Yeah, because what I found when we went to pick up the rental was that you know, my international visa was fine, my international driving license was fine until I got my Iqama. So as soon as I get my Iqama, you're classed as a resident, and from that point onwards, you need a driving license.
How was that?
Well, it's still ongoing. I've done the medicals, I've done the paperwork.
Okay.
Maybe you can help me. I'm trying to find somewhere within Jeddah where I can take it in and exchange my license. The closest place is apparently 3 hours away, so I'm looking into that, closer to Mecca.
Okay.
But outside of that, trying to set up a bank account has been a nightmare as well. I'm going to go for my 4th attempt in a couple more days, because I keep finding out new things that I should have done that I didn't know about, such as get my phone number attached to my Iqama number. And yeah, the guy in there always laughs when I walk in now. He's like, right, here we go, round 3. Let's give it a go.
I totally get that, because it's kind of like you go somewhere to do something. Fine, I'm taking some time out of my day to do this thing. Okay, I've been given a task, I need to go do this task, whatever that might be. Go ahead and do it, and then you have to go back, right? And then there's another task. It's like a quest, right? Like a side quest. You have to do this. It's like, just tell me step 1, step 2, step 3, what I need to do. I had this with like Mobily and switching apartment, and that was an absolute anyway. And for me, I remember like it came to the practical part, right? Because I had a UK license, I needed to change it, so I had to sort of demonstrate that I could still drive. And I literally did half a figure of 8, and then the guy was like, "Halas, done." Literally, like, I was super nervous about it still, but literally 5 seconds in the car, and then it was done, passed, and then you get your license.
One thing that's certainly got easier is actually getting into Saudi. When I first started 4 years ago, I was often standing at the airline desk, having got there nice and early, and it'd be 3 hours later I'm still standing at the airline desk. Why? Because they can't find my visa.
Ooh, okay.
Which is a number which apparently is available in Jeddah or Riyadh, wherever I was travelling. But because I didn't have it and they didn't have it, I wasn't allowed on the plane.
No, really?
Until sort of in the middle of the night, we'd wake up somebody in Saudi to get onto immigration to phone the airline to say that he has got a number. And off we would then run to try and get on the plane before they shut the door. Now, this happened every time. This wasn't just once. And we were travelling a lot, in and out, in and out, in and out. And with my colleague at the time, same thing happened. And at least once he got turned away completely and didn't travel.
Really?
I always managed somehow or other. Must be the charm or something like that.
Anyway. You might have been wearing your...
my kit.
Your kit, exactly.
My linen shirt that you mentioned.
Just like how you got into here today. Yeah, phone? Yeah, good. Yeah, pass, done.
That's right. You saw the linen shirt, no collar. You said it must be important.
Must be important. Looks very important.
You've seen Pete the coach.
Yes.
Very important. Anyway,
I think you'll find it's Coach Pete, but anyway.
But now, Coach Pete, so sorry, you got your name around the wrong way. Call me Coach. And that's what my kids call me, Coach and Dinosaur, by the way.
Okay, not Coach Dinosaur.
No, I'm useless on technology. I'm currently relying on Matt to get my phone right and my. I find how to get my email and things like that. But I'm all self-taught and obviously not very well.
Self-taught, self-made.
But now I've got a 12-month visa. I'm in and out in a flash, no problem. We usually talk football to the immigration people, and they're very happy. Can't wait to see you again.
Okay. So you've found what works.
I found what works. Yeah.
So Matt, you've been making notes, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
he hates
football.
You're like, who's the football team?
I don't like football that much. I just say like, the guys in the blue.
The guys in blue. But sorry, back to what was it? The bad experience. It basically for you, it's just the ease of kind of getting yourself settled, really.
Yeah.
From the sounds of it.
Yeah, like just learning everything for the first time. You know, it doesn't come to me naturally. You know, you get so used to how things are done in the UK, and then you come here and they're not so black and white. Yes,
and there isn't really a process. It's kind of if the guy likes you, if they don't.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your time here so far has been pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Pleasantly surprised, or kind of just took it in your stride as it came?
I think pleasantly surprised is how it has to be, because we knew nothing except what we read at the time.
True.
And found it different, and in many ways quite enjoyable. I've enjoyed my time here because I will be spending less time actually in Saudi in the future. I'll still keep my hand in with the coaching and the training camps and things like that, and who knows what else will happen. Because I do have quite a lot of experience in both business and sport that is needed in the rowing area, and I know the president would like me to continue kind of role of strategic thinking and whatever at a kind of higher level, but not living here all the time. And a bit more time for my family.
That'll fund your house in Barnes.
Well, hardly, to be honest.
A flat in Barnes.
Rental parking space.
So everything when you're in and out, when you're spending less time in Saudi, then everything's going to be
on Matt. And why not? I recommended him. It's true. We worked together all this time, and I thought he's, young, got all the stuff, and it'd be great for me to stand back and let him take over. And I was all for it. And,
so was it a no-brainer when Bill approached you and wanted you to come over here? Suggested you come over here?
We fought it out together.
Yeah,
let's put it that way. I didn't suggest anything except we fought through difficult times. And kept together, kept in touch, and when things changed, as they did, we were lucky to get some change. For me, he was the natural person to say he should take on.
Amazing.
And look after him and whatever. So that's what we're doing.
Well, who better to guide and sort of, navigate the rowing situation here than, as you put it, the world's best rowing country, GB.
Both of us.
Yeah.
Try to.
We know what works, what support we need, better than most people here. Hopefully it's going to pay off, because gradually things are changing.
Yeah.
And it's going to take maybe 8 years. But the point is, that doesn't make sport rowing a low priority. It's a high priority, because if you don't put things in place now, the future will never happen.
Oh, for sure.
There's no future without a short term in this particular case. and it does require people to change their minds quite a lot about how to finance resources in order to possibly get somewhere. Because if they don't do it now, there won't be a future. It won't develop into schools. It won't go into universities, which would be absolutely fantastic if I could look back in 10 years' time from under the earth or wherever and see that it had developed in that way. I'd be a really happy person.
Because I was going to say, like, for you, your guys' decision to move over here, you know, to somewhere where the opportunity and potential is huge. Obviously, you're facing other sort of more practical considerations and barriers and obstacles getting in your way, but like the potential payoff, not in the financial sense, but in the sort of the legacy or the having the opportunity to impact must be such a big pull for you guys.
It's absolutely the thing for me.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, despite the amount they paid for Ronaldo, I don't really quite get that amount either. So, you know, pay is not high in the rowing world, so it's not the point. Even seeing these people improve. I mean, today already we've had 2 PBs in front of our very eyes. One girl and one guy did a PB on 30-minute workout, which is really hard.
Now, telling you they've got another PB.
Yes, yeah.
That's probably one of them texting.
Your phone's gone off like 4 times. Maybe that's 4 more we could update.
Well, last week
6 PBs today.
Last week we got 4 personal best times. This week so far, before we came to see you, Coach, Pete, or Pete Coach, was that we had 2, and maybe the phone calls are to say some more. That's really rewarding to see that improvement, because it's tough for them. They're still working, by the way, some of them.
Yes.
In fact, the 2 people who got PBs today, both are working, and they're putting in the time. They're, you know, ripping up their social lives, and to see them improve and move slowly towards something is what I like the most about it all.
Yeah.
And actually being in a country where you might have a bit of a legacy in terms of you started a sport, you started a federation, and it's beginning to flourish.
Yeah.
That's a great feeling, you know, and nice for someone in my position in life to actually be part of. Because normally you're sitting by the fireside reading a newspaper, falling asleep. Well, I don't sit by any fireside, and I don't fall asleep, and I don't read newspapers.
How about you, Matt? Is that similar for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think I never saw myself transitioning into a coach until probably after the Rio Olympics, when, you know, so at the Rio Olympics I was a spare, and I didn't want to be a spare at that Olympics. And I sort of looked back at all my teammates, and I saw that they had a good sort of work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I realised I looked at everything in that. So I needed something external to take my mind away from my own sort of processes. And so that's when I started my coaching business. And, you know, it's still very much rowing, but it gave me the opportunity to put my focus onto someone else rather than always analysing myself. And through the process of helping these athletes, I could understand a little bit more about how to get more out of myself.
I see. Okay.
And then that naturally transitioned into just more enjoyment in it. And I've always enjoyed sort of helping people. My family are full of teachers. Pretty much everyone apart from my dad and my brother are teachers in my family.
Okay.
So there's a strong history in there about just trying to help people and educate and support as much as we can. And for me, that's through sport rather than education, although we do try and educate them along the way. And, you know, it's just something that I have become really passionate about. And to be given an opportunity like this, like Bill said, to sort of try and create a legacy and, you know, teach people about a sport that's fairly unheard of in this country is amazing. And, you know, as you've touched upon, we do have our challenges, and a lot of those challenges is trying to get the right support and the equipment and access to water. And we're also restricted on sort of time. We want to look at the long-term development of the sport, but also short-term, we're trying to get ready for an Asian Games, which is in sort of September time. And we basically have to make the selection by May. And between then, as you'll probably touch upon, you know, got Ramadan right in the middle of that selection period, and it's how do we keep these athletes ticking over? How do we keep them training hard? So when it comes to May, you know, we can make this selection months in advance of the actual regatta itself. For other sports, May might be ideal. For rowing, it's a nightmare because, you know, we don't start racing till after May, so a lot of our testing events will come after selection. So, you know, it's an amazing opportunity, but there's still some educating from the higher levels and how we can structure the season to help our own athletes and help ourselves get the most out of the sport.
I see. So what, at the moment, you guys are focusing on the Asian Games? Is that like the big milestone coming up?
Yeah, for a lot
Very
of Asian
much so,
countries, it's
yeah.
huge. It's
Yeah.
like the home Olympics.
Fine.
The Asian Games are bigger than the Olympics, and to Asian countries, in many cases, more important than the
Okay.
Olympics. I think I've been to the best Olympics ever. You know, I went to Athens, which was a centenary of the original Olympics. Went to Beijing, first time the Chinese opened their doors to the Western world.
Okay.
Then we went to Tokyo, of course, and that was interesting. Britain, London Olympics. How could we compete against them? And we did. It was a great game. So went to the best sort of Olympics that there could be, and going back to Tokyo was quite a bit of a legacy because
Yeah.
no one in the world had been to the same place twice.
Okay. Okay.
In an official position. So you're looking at
So
a
there's lots
unique
of
person
firsts for
at
you
last.
as well.
It was a first for me, and
Yeah.
it'll be a last as well.
No, not going to go for another Tokyo round. How long will that be?
Never.
So what really are your priorities going into that Asian Games for you to feel like it is a potential success?
Just my perspective on the thing is to get as many people as we can into the Asian Games.
Okay.
Now, and here's where Matt comes in, it's going to be much more performance oriented than it has been in the past. Especially, I mean, that was one of the first things that Prince Abdul Aziz said. He said it's going to be performance based. And even in those Asian Games in Indonesia, he cut down the initial intake from something like 1,500, 15,000 people going to 3,000 people because he made it certain that it was more performance based than a holiday jolly for him and whoever.
I see.
So
So performance based is essentially you're taking the top performers and you're not taking people who don't stand a chance.
Exactly.
Okay. Fine. So it's not
Exactly.
just chuck everyone in who we can.
And there's not all the wrinkled old retainers joining in, having a jolly on the board, or whatever.
Well, that's how it used to be done, I think. They used to, I'm not going to use the expression we use in the UK, but they basically send as many people as they can and hope some of them do well. Normally about stuff thrown against the wall and hoping some of it sticks. But no, like Bill said, it is a lot more performance based. So we've had to create a whole selection policy, try and sort of formalise the process of how we select these athletes. And some of them are committing more time than others. Some of them are performing better than others. But ultimately, our job, as Bill said, is to send not only the most athletes, but the most competitive ones. And within rowing, you have everything from a one-man boat. Well, we would like to enter it one day to an 8-man boat, and you've got two different forms. You've got sculling with 2 oars, you've got sweep with 1 oar, and there are sort of 4 disciplines within each of those disciplines.
Yeah.
So not only are you trying to find the best individual athletes to represent their country, you're trying to find the best combinations of athletes to make a boat class go fast as well.
I see. Okay.
And so to formalise that, we try and have a selection process where we try and use land-based training on the rowing machine. We do 2,000 metres is sort of our gold standard, but then on the water as well, we do a lot of individual testing in 1-man boats, 2-man boats, 4-man boats, switching them around, always trying to compete against each other. And we almost have weekly performance markers. So when Bill spoke about the personal best this week, every week we do a half an hour rowing session at 20 strokes per minute, as far as you can go. And that's quite a good one for us, not just for mental resilience, but also physical development and fitness, to seeing actually can you go further in that 30-minute period every single week. But you can't change how many strokes you take. It's all power and fitness and resilience.
I thought that was 20 strokes per minute, as in like you just have to keep going until you give up. It's within a time cap.
Yes.
So I was
you've got 30
thinking,
minutes and you need to go as far as possible.
Okay.
As far as possible.
Okay.
So you just got to work as hard as you can for as long as you can within that 30-minute period, but you can't do higher than 20 strokes per minute.
I see.
The higher the stroke rate, the easier it will be. But if everyone's at 20, they're all the same. They're all equal, men and women. Just go as far as you can.
Okay. So we're not going to hold you to this, but what do you think, or how many people do you think would be, a measure of success for you in terms of getting to the Asian Games?
Well, I think for the Asian Championships back in December, we had 13 athletes, I believe, across multiple different boat categories, men, women, juniors, under 23, seniors.
Okay.
I think if we're looking at the senior team, we actually have a fairly small senior team as it stands. We have a couple of women, we have a couple more men.
Yeah.
And I think, it'd be incredible to take all of them. But as we said, there is a selection process and we nominate boats and it's the Olympic Commission that select the boats. So we can put our best foot forwards and hope, they like what they see. But like Bill said, it's, get as many people there as we can, and if we can prove that they've gone fast enough in the training and the benchmark testing, then there shouldn't be any issues.
Awesome. So when I mentioned you to my dad, because he's quite the rowing fan, he came back. He knew you both, and he sort of gave me your sort of biography, your short biography. He was like, Matt Tarrant is an ex-GB and world champ rower who learned to row at Weybridge. Is that true?
That is true.
That is true. He's been down to a small club last year coaching a small group of Saudi rowers. Haven't seen him recently, so might be back in Saudi. So here he is. He's definitely back in Saudi. And he has briefly spoken to Matt. Probably doesn't know me, but tell him I'm rowing in the Mass FG 8+.
Masters 8.
FG.
FG.
Oh, that's the category.
Yeah.
Category
Age
F.
category,
Masters men's 8.
Okay.
At what club though?
Matt is a nice guy. You can tell him we are rowing in the red Philippi 8, which is still rigged as bow side stroke since he last used it.
So your dad rows at Walton?
Probably. Yes.
Okay. So that would have been the same boat we took our lot out in.
So
Yeah.
he knows what
He's a Walton boy. So Walton is where I went to after Weybridge.
Okay.
And then rowed there for about 2 years when I went to Junior Worlds. And we also held our first training camp there last August. We were there for about 6 weeks training out of Walton with the senior team.
I see. Okay, so maybe if you look at the camera and just say, hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Although you have spoken, apparently. But anyway, I thought I'd share that. And he might even be listening live. But anyway, we want to talk about how we can get more people into sport in Saudi, and particularly, obviously, a sport which is close to your hearts, which is rowing. So how, if someone's listening to this, or if someone's got a little bit of has seen someone else rowing and wants a bit of the action themselves, how can they try it out? Like, what would you suggest to them in terms of getting into the sport?
Well,
Matt's deferring.
Well, no, I know. I'm very, very busy, and I know Bill is extremely passionate about this part of developing the sport.
well, there are two ways, really. From an individual point of view, they can go to a gym and start to do some training, maybe some weights to get some strength, and maybe using the rowing machine known as the Ergo Concept 2 to get some endurance and some feel for what it's like to actually row. There are plenty of other instruments around these days, including watt bikes, which you can pedal away to your heart's content and get some stamina, and even a ski erg, so you can practice that movement of skiing, which give you upper body strength and endurance. And then maybe you find a club or someone in the Saudi Rowing Federation who might guide you towards rowing in a boat. And by the way, I might just mention here, since we haven't up to date, that there is another form of rowing for which Saudi could be extremely good, and that's coastal rowing. Because, believe it or not, Saudi is surrounded by seas, and coastal rowing is a new sport. So we wouldn't be 150 years behind,
Okay.
which is not a joke. That's the sport of rowing. I mean, Oxford and Cambridge have boat raced for 180 years. So that's how long the sport has been around. And as Matt was describing, he'd been rowing since he's 14 and now 32. We wouldn't be behind because it's a relatively new sport and is being considered for the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028.
Okay.
And we have got some coastal boats, which are useful in two ways. One, to learn coastal rowing, but actually to start rowing in the classical way because they're much more stable and you don't tend to take a swim at the same time
I see.
when you go out in the racing boats. So our pathway is learn to do some land training so you can see what training is like, get some strength, get some endurance, then go out with a coach. What we normally do is take a guy out with a coach in a double scull. So they have a coach who's coaching them, keeps the boat stable, and they go out in that a few times just to learn the technique. Then we put them into a coastal boat, which is a big wide boat, and when they're efficient at that, maybe they move into a racing boat and a single or a double or a quad or whatever. So that's kind of one pathway, and more and more people are coming up to us when we're in the gym saying, "I want to learn about rowing," because when the going gets tough, the tough get rowing, and there are a lot of people around who think they're pretty tough. Okay, let's see you. And the other real way to get into rowing is really a sort of, if you like, a governmental move to put sport as part of the curriculum in schools as mandatory, as it is in many, many other countries, that every school has a gymnasium, every school has sport that it can follow. I know most people will follow football here because it's very popular.
Yeah.
If we could get sports started in schools, so sort of compulsory once a week, whatever it is, PE, sports, get a football team, get a rowing team, or whatever it is, and then moving on to universities who have resources, have sports, and people take up a lot more sports, get rowing into universities. There becomes a pathway which actually starts with schools, universities, then on to junior teams, into university teams. You know, there is University World Championships which are taking place this year in
Canada, London.
London, Canada, and there are Junior World Championships, and there's international schools, national schools races. It could really become a very exciting thing where schools pit themselves against each other in another new sport. So that's a kind of thing that's going to take a very long time to develop, because you would have to start with boys and girls age 14, and it takes 4 years or 3 years for them to reach 17 or 18 when they will become good enough to race other schools, to race in juniors, to race towards being in a university team, etc., etc. So that's the kind of organisational way that the country's got to look. But individuals can go to a gym, start some land training, and then talk to people in the rowing federation.
Because I think the awareness is one thing that is sort of growing massively at the moment. I'm sure you guys have seen that yourselves. I mean, you're getting approached in Red Sea Mall, being asked for an autograph and all that kind of stuff. So both awareness of the sport and you guys as
celebrities. Do you know her name as well?
No comment. No, so the awareness is coming, and I think social media is such a big thing for that generally in sport, and this sport in particular. But then also it's the kind of what you're talking about there is the accessibility, right, and just lowering the barriers to entry.
I'd just like to mention the most famous race in the world. It's between two universities, Oxford and Cambridge.
Yes.
And in America, it's between Yale and Harvard.
Yes.
So that is one of the exciting things about our sport, that the most famous races are in university levels. And universities have lots of people and they have lots of resources.
Yes.
And it may be spread around, but it's a real opportunity for Saudi to grow the sport in universities, back into the schools, and we'll create a stream of people that will gradually propagate the sport of rowing to become an important issue. And it's open to women as well. And I think women will gradually like this sport, as I say, because of the teamwork, getting together, team spirit. They love this sort of thing. And the whole idea of technique, I think, is something that's right up their street. And when they see around the world how many women are doing this, I think they'll want to join in. So we might actually achieve Prince Abdulaziz's dream of having a big women's team and a big men's team sometime in the future. Might be 2030 as part of the movement in Saudi. It might be in 2034 when the Saudi Games will be in, the Asian Games will be in Saudi.
Yes.
And one of our guys, Hussein Alireza, actually led or was part of that group that competed against Qatar to get the 2030 Games, and they were given the 2034 Games. And I'm pleased to say that he's now arrived back in Jeddah. And I expect to see him tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, ready to row in his boat, which is ready for him at 6:30. So if you're hearing me, Hussein, or if anybody knows where he is,
pass on a message to him.
Pass on the message, and I mean it.
I think Hussein Alireza's DMs are going to be lighting up. They should be.
Just to remind you that he is a guy who got into the Olympics through thick and thin, and actually suffered a very bad injury in the qualification where his lung collapsed. And he still raced in the Olympics and qualified through to the quarter and semi-finals. So he's a brave guy.
Yes.
Maybe he needs a week off here and there, but that's now over. as Coach Pete says, he'll find you, and when I find you, I will, etc., etc.
Seeing the awareness of it grow hugely, you know, as part of the Saudi Games as well. You know, there's lots of entrants coming into that, and especially the next one coming up. There's even more of a pool, even more of a draw with the prize fund.
Yeah.
Little bit of an increase there.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one way of getting people into the sport, is offer tons of cash. And we're going to finish by looking into the future a bit. Okay, we've got only a couple minutes, so briefly, where do you see yourselves / rowing going towards the Vision 2030? What does the next 7 years look like for you?
Right. Thanks, Matt.
Both inhale.
He can keep quieter than I can longer. That's my trouble.
Is it he who talks first loses?
I like to listen.
Yes.
I think it would be great to see that the sport had started in schools, that it was a growing sport in schools for both men, or boys and girls. I'd like to see many universities taking up the sport in both coastal and classic, and I'd like to see a national university championship happening, and the following year a national schools championship happening. Then I would know that the legacy had started and we could look forward to a healthy rowing future in Saudi.
Nice, short, concise, clear.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be called the Bill Barry Cup. I think.
You said briefly, which was pretty hard going, but I tried to be.
That was impressive.
Succinct. Matt, take that.
Well, I think for me, I'll try and be even shorter. I think for me, it's just
What he said.
what he said. But turning up to an international regatta like the World Championships or a World Cup and not have a question mark next to Saudi Arabia. You know, Bill's probably had this when you go to the Olympics, like, oh, there's a rower from Saudi Arabia. Who is this chap?
Yeah,
You know, I want that to.
How much did they have to
go
pay
away.
to get in, kind of thing?
Exactly. But you know, if in 7 years' time, whatever, we can go to a World Championships and the commentators aren't saying, oh, and there's a crew from Saudi Arabia. It's like, oh, and so from Saudi Arabia is back. They've had a really good season. Blah blah blah. You know, that'd be amazing, and a lot of that is going to come from what Bill has just mentioned.
Awesome. Love that. Concise. Yeah. Man, if we were concise for the whole show, we would have had like 10 minutes.
It would be so boring.
I know.
Thank God.
Just more Queen. More Queen playing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love Queen.
Any closing thoughts for the people out there listening? Is there raging in Riyadh traffic or Jeddah traffic?
Don't ignore the sport of rowing. Just think about it, because it could be your son or your daughter representing their country, and there's nothing that can make you more proud than that. It's a tough sport. It takes dedication, takes training, but what's wrong with that? That'll see you through in life pretty well, because life goes on even after rowing.
Love that.
Yeah, I think when I was in the Cox pair, our Cox Henry always had this famous quote, if not now, when?
Yes.
If you are thinking about it, don't wait.
Yeah.
You know, get your phone out. If you're sat there in standstill traffic and there's no one looking,
No one looking.
open Instagram, look up Saudi rowing and slide into their DMs, find out how I can get in there.
After pulling over and stopping the vehicle.
Exactly, turning the engine off, put it in park.
And I'd actually like to finish by saying thank you, Coach Pete, for having us on board.
No, it's awesome.
And giving us a chance to just talk a little bit about our sport, which we think is great, obviously, and now you do, and we'll see you in the gym.
I always did. Yeah, well, I thought, I was like, I need to speak to these guys. I need to, because, I think as you're
Saudi
saying as
games
well.
are coming and I want to enter.
Yeah, we'll split, we'll sort out something. But no, I think it sounds like you're kind of in silos in terms of your kind of life here in a way, and so I think just being able to share your story, what you're up to, the vision, and actually kind of to be able to raise awareness more so for the sport is a great, well, this is a great platform to do so. So hopefully the Bill Barry Cup will happen.
I think I have to end by saying thanks to Prince Abdul Aziz for his support for the sport. I believe his dad actually used to row a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe that's why, but I think he sees it as something new, something that could make history in this country, and something which would follow through their program of looking for better health and looking for younger people to be in a healthier state. And there's no better sport than rowing to do that, apart from the values that it creates of team spirit, teamwork together, dedication, discipline, doing things. It could be a whole new country based on rowing.
Exciting times. Well, lots happening, and rowing will be part of that. So thank you so much for coming in. Really enjoyed that, and we'll see you checking in on the athletes in arena. Hopefully, when I'm there watching from afar, being like, oh God, thank God that's not me. Yet. But no, enjoy. Thank you so much, and to everyone out there, there will be a video put up of this, so more on that later. But enjoy your evening.
And safe driving from us.
Safe driving. Watch out for Bill's wheel. It's tired. Rumour has it it's still rolling. It's still rolling. Anyway, goodbye. Enjoy. Have a lovely evening. For the non-radio people, for people out here who are on YouTube thinking about coming to Saudi, they're doing a bit of research. What would you say to them about coming to the kingdom, coming to Saudi, the opportunity? Would you advise it?
Yeah, I said do it.
Definitely. Do it. If not now, when?
If not now, when? Yeah.
But any sort of anything?
Yeah, I think people should come to Saudi because it's a new experience. It's something they will never have done, and it would be understanding a culture that is different, but has a lot to offer. And in fact, the country has a lot more to offer than we've seen up to now because it's not been open. There are lots of historic places, fantastic, unbelievable landscapes, lots of hiking, walking, climbing,
surfing,
coastal rowing, rock climbing, and living in tents in the desert and riding a camel. I mean, what more could you ask for in your life than to have that experience rather than going on a package holiday tour to the usual places?
Yeah.
And it's actually really easy to get in. You know, I set a visa for my girlfriend the other day.
Okay.
Visit Saudi visa. It takes 5 minutes to fill in. It lasts a year, and you get 90 days of access.
Yeah.
So it's very easy.
So I think it's so easy to be sort of steered by what you read in the papers and on the news and whatever else. And I think, you two are great examples of coming somewhere and, making an impact and hopefully here for quite some time.
And learning a lot.
And again, being such a contrast to back home and a whole new life experience.
Definitely.
But no, thank you. Appreciate it. And it is time for the news.
Time for the news.